Hey guys, just a quick message from Alspatter to say happy May the 4th and a big thank you to those who have continued to support our podcast series and also those who have liked and get involved with the posts on our Light the Saber Facebook page. So enjoy the festivities, and as a small thank you, we are putting out not one but two episodes of the podcast this May the 4th, which very happily did fall on one of our Friday upload days. So may the force be with you, have a fantastic day, and enjoy.
For centuries, Alderaan stood as a beacon of hope in the Republic. The Empire came.
I have chosen to test this station's destructive power on your home planet of Alderaan.
Peace while you suffer. The Emperor drowns you in black waters.
He wants me to be Darth Revan again. Serve him as I did centuries ago. He made me a Sith Lord and named me Darth Revan.
The Force does not control you. You saved your guardian using something you thought was important. But your motives are still aligned with the Jedi Code.
To arms, men! Defend the throne!
Anakin Skywalker was weak. I destroyed him. He was weak and foolish like his father. So I destroyed him.
Master Windu, you have fought gallantly. Worthy of recognition in the archives of the Jedi. It is finished.
To them it is.
I have been waiting for you. Is it true that he is the chosen one?
It's Alex,
And Robert.
and welcome back to State of the Galaxy. So welcome back, Robert.
Hello again.
And today, like last time, we're going to be covering the Clone Wars, but this time we're going to be covering Season 2.
Yep.
So, first of all, what were your thoughts?
I enjoyed it. There were certain arcs I enjoyed more than others. But on the whole, it felt like a nice addition to Star Wars canon. There
Yeah.
are some aspects I do have issue with,
Okay, well, that'd
which
be cool.
I'm sure
'cause
we'll get into.
We will cover that in just a mo. So, in terms of development throughout this second series, who was your favourite character? Because I forget who you chose last time.
To be honest, so do I.
I mean, it may have been Obi-Wan, but...
Yeah, I feel like though there were a few more episodes which focused on Obi-Wan, which, as an Obi-Wan fan, I do appreciate.
Fair.
Strange enough, Luminara Unduli.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
I don't know why, but like,
Were there that many episodes? I mean, I haven't seen Season 2 in a while. Was there that many episodes with her?
not that many, but
you
what
had the
ones there were?
Because it was all the Geonosis
Yeah,
stuff, wasn't
yeah,
it? Okay, fair enough. Though she did kind of come into her own with that because you had all the stuff with the break off with Ahsoka and her
Yeah, yeah.
Padawan Barriss and all that kind of stuff. So I suppose that kind of built on them as well because it was nice to see Ahsoka go off and do stuff with another apprentice.
Yeah.
As opposed to just her with her master, because all we really see with Anakin is him scolding her and her kind of failing all the time.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see two Padawans go off, and despite the fact they may fail, they build off each other's skills,
Yeah.
and they succeed as a unit, as opposed to just Anakin
Coming
winning.
in and saving the day.
Yeah, being the knight on the back of the horse. So, at the opposite end of the spectrum, who was your least favourite character in terms of development?
I haven't really thought of it because no one's really gone in a direction that I'm like,
I hate this.
yeah.
Yeah. That's the problem with Clone Wars, that we get so many characters that are so lovable and so interesting. It's very difficult to pick out one that we just don't
Yeah.
like as much.
I mean, not so much. Oh, this was really disappointing character development, but Yoda was barely in it.
Yeah.
He was in like definitely one episode, maybe two,
Okay.
but only in the background.
Because that's the thing with Season 1 at the very beginning. I think it was one of the first episodes. He has that episode on the Tidarian...
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the race, but their homeworld, where he's with the group of clones.
Yeah, and it's
really.
like him and 3 clones against an entire battalion of
But
droids.
it's him kind of giving off his wise teachings. But if you just go by the originals and even the prequels, it would suggest that Yoda only gave these kind of wise teachings to the Jedi and ones that he would consider high up within the ranks of his own studies.
Yeah.
But it appeared that
Right.
that's all right. But it would appear that he'd do it if given the opportunity to anyone of his own militia. So it's quite nice. But it was a shame that we didn't see more of Yoda throughout.
Saw more Mace Windu though, so sort of balance the scales.
I can't remember if you get to see his Shatterpoint technique in season 2. Is there a point where he goes up to a downed gunship and uses the Force to break the window?
Oh, that was season 1.
Oh, okay.
So I have seen that.
Because the point of the Shatterpoint technique is that you use the Force to detect the weaknesses within a structure or a situation, and then you home in on that. So he would be able to home in on a pane of glass where it was at its weakest and then shatter it. So moving on, character that you see maybe not making it towards the end of the series. So we're jumping now all the way till the end of season 5/6.
As in, character I feel is going to die beforehand.
Yeah. Do you see them that they're kind of setting up towards this, or do you think just in terms of Star Wars canon, how you understand it to lay at the moment?
I mean, towards the end of, bit after season 6, end of Revenge of the Sith, only 3 Jedi are going to make it out. Well, 3 Jedi canon-wise that you see in the films are going to make it out.
But remember all the stuff that's being added in now with Marvel Comics, and
that's true.
I mean, I'm guessing you know a little bit from Rebels just simply because of where we work. So
I've seen bits. I have.
So you understand
some indication of who's going to make it to that series.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure of the specifics. Which I want to find out the specifics on my own.
No, fair. I wasn't gonna reveal anything, but in terms of character that you think may not make it, are there any particular that stand out?
No, again, other than the the names Jedi, unfortunately. I feel like maybe Pre Vizsla.
Yeah.
And these like Death Watch Mandalorian troopers. Because as far as I'm aware, just in the like general Star Wars ether, in like you say, the comics and Rebels, I haven't seen anything of them.
No.
So they might get wiped out.
Fair. Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing what you find out when you get around to watching that. So moving on from that, what's your favourite moment within season 2?
Moment specifically.
Yeah.
It's probably in the Geonosis arc.
Yeah, because I know that you really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was a really good one. That was my favourite arc of the series.
Yeah.
I mean, spoiler alert for a series that came out, nearly 10 years ago?
A long time ago, yeah.
The fight between mind-controlled Barriss, Afi, and Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And the other mind-controlled clones. That was a good point. And
it's always nice to see, because you can argue, I suppose, that Obi-Wan faced the same kind of thing with Anakin. He was, to a certain extent, mind-controlled by the dark side of the Force in his own pursuits and his own selfish ambitions. But at the same time, to have someone who's outright controlled by another entity or creature, and then have the kind of struggle of, you were my friend, but I now have to treat you as my enemy, or at least be able to subdue you enough to then be able to try and bring you back. Yeah. It can create like an interesting dynamic between characters.
Yeah, that was a nice sort of touch.
Yeah. No, fair enough. And at the opposite end of the spectrum, because you said there were some things that you didn't like so much, what was your least favourite moment or at least story arc within season 2?
I mean, it might have been sort of just a throwaway line, but the implication that Jango Fett is not a true Mandalorian, and by extension Boba Fett is not a true Mandalorian, I was not down with that.
No, because in original canon at least, wasn't Jango Fett a war hero on Mandalore?
I think so, yeah.
And he is, to all extent and purposes, a Mandalorian. I mean, obviously Boba Fett isn't. I mean, he isn't really, is he? Because he is a clone.
Yeah.
He doesn't study on Mandalore. he takes what we understand to at least be a copy of his father's armor, if not the same, and just continues on being a bounty hunter. I mean, bounty hunters, in terms of Mandalorian society, or at least as I understand it, that's kind of a dishonorable pursuit. You're meant to be an honorable clan that look out for your brothers, not go out on your own and do these things just because you need money. So he's not really following Mandalorian tradition.
No.
You could argue that he's reforming it, because perhaps within the kind of teenage years of Boba Fett all the way up until his kind of demise years, the galaxy had changed, therefore Mandalore and Mandalorian culture would have to change with it in order to survive. You could argue that he was just trying to reform that, but from what I've seen, at least, it just seemed like he was going with the flow.
I mean, you never really see him do much in the films other than
fail.
Well,
and look menacing.
And hang out around Jabba's palace. But I know that a lot of the... I don't know about a lot, but I know that in at least some of the comics and expanded universe novels and stuff, he's like an honourable bounty hunter.
Okay.
So he only takes jobs where it's like a clearly bad dude needs to be killed sort of thing. And he's not like smuggling, you know, illicit substances or arms to warlords, that sort of thing.
Okay, fair. I mean, I hadn't really explored that side of things, so perhaps he does withhold some of his father's values and in turn Mandalore's values. I mean, they are a violent, or at least the kind of Death Watch division that we get to see in the Clone Wars, they are a violent faction of Mandalore. And during the Old Republic, it was the only real faction that existed. I mean, Duchess Satine, she kind of brings out her own... A pacifist kind of approach, but still an honourable one. So it still retains some of those core values, but at the same time, you've then got this kind of two faction side that just simply can't coexist.
Yeah.
So I guess we could look at it that Boba Fett took bits of both into his own. The kind of passionate side that he would then not, like you say, not take up jobs that would cause any kind of real harm and distress to a great deal of people, but at the same time, if he determines someone to be bad, that person more often than not is going to be eradicated.
Like, you'll have a very sort of black and white moral code.
Yeah.
Because in the... it was probably my second favourite sort of arc, where the young Boba infiltrates the young clone training
poses to be one of them.
Because though he's working with bounty hunters like Aura Singh and Bosk, and they're vicious and in it for the money.
Yeah.
When they take hostages, he it's a bit sort of tempered because he's a kid. He's only going to be like, I think he was about 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah,
like the actor when episode 2 was filmed, I think that was about how old he was. So innocence of a child and all that. But he was like caring for the hostages rather than just being like, well, this will net us some money.
Yeah.
And he only wanted to go along with the plan to avenge his father.
Yeah, which was his main goal. And after that, he went into his bounty hunter life. So yeah, I suppose you're right. It's not just in the comics. It was shown from the Clone Wars series that he does actually have some mercy and understands right from wrong. Yeah, because there was the bounty hunters sent a hologram recording to the Jedi of the hostages that they had. Yeah. And Aura Singh was like standing there with Boba Fett. Boba had the gun trained on one of the hostages. Yeah. But then he couldn't pull the trigger in the end. So Aura Singh did it instead. Yeah. So it shows that she's a lot more merciless and than he is. Yeah. But I guess that's just from their two different... Yeah. I mean, but I suppose, though, that's something that kind of conflicts, because Boba, in Attack of the Clones, he was very much just a sheep following his father. Like, he had no reason to outright hate the Jedi, but I've never seen a kid give a more hateful look to Ewan McGregor in my entire life. And every single thing that he said or did just seemed very much a reflection of what his father was trying to do. It wasn't provoked upon him.
I mean, if
I mean, obviously, the stuff that happened on the Geonosis Arena just reinforced what his father had probably taught him.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. If Django's been bringing him up in like the Mandalorian fashion, and back in Mandalore's history, they clashed with the Jedi, then he probably passed those teachings down onto Boba. So when he finally encounters one, he'll be like, these guys, these guys.
These are the ones that caused us all this trouble all these years ago. So yeah, but it's nice to hear that he kind of took on his own beliefs and kind of went out of his way not to pursue these teachings and nothing else. He learned for himself, and in many ways it just reinforced what he'd already learned. But I think it's an important life lesson anyway, that you can be taught these kind of, this person's bad, this person's good, this faction's bad, this faction's good. But at the same time, it's probably best to go out and kind of look it up yourself. Yeah. To just reinforce it, because having your own beliefs is kind of what makes us human. Yeah. To follow like a sheep and not question anything is a kind of isolated way of doing things. But, you know, each their own. What would you like to see in Season 3 following on from Season 2? I mean, obviously, I'm guessing you'd like to see more Yoda, given the fact that you expressed a disappointment in having not seen so much.
I mean, not too much.
No, not like a Yoda-oriented story.
Entire series of nothing but Yoda.
I don't know if you're going to be disappointed or not. But, so, yeah, no, fair enough. But in terms of perhaps some events, because you do know a little bit, obviously, from where we were and what you probably just picked up from Star Wars videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's all eventually going to lead to Episode 3, isn't it?
Yeah, so you know...
Eventually I know how things are going to pan out.
Yeah. But what would you like to see building on that? Because you mentioned last time that you got to see a bit... I think it was you who mentioned that you got to see a bit more of Anakin's dark side building up. Yeah.
There was one instance of that which really stuck in my mind in the Geonosis arc. Yeah. Where I think it was they needed to get the location of the Geonosian Queen out of Poggle the Lesser. Yeah. And he's not complying. Jedi mind tricks weren't working on him, that sort of thing. So he goes to Poggle's cell where he's being held and tells the guards to leave, and then just starts slapping him around. Yeah. Until he gets what he wants, and you could just about hear the faint
Vader Imperial March.
Yeah.
Because it was bizarrely something that we saw within the Clone Wars first, not from him, but from Ahsoka Tano when she was interrogating Viceroy. Yeah. And she lashed out with her lightsaber, but then she later confirmed with Barriss that it was just kind of like a scare tactic. Yeah. She wasn't really going to do anything.
I feel that was sort of more playing good cop, bad cop, whereas Anakin was actually bad cop.
He just had enough. Yeah. And he was getting this information one way or another. He didn't really care if Poggle came out of it okay. Yeah. So that's fair enough. But I'm guessing then you'd like to see a bit more build up, because it's something that people always complain about, and more often than not, these people are people that haven't seen the Clone Wars series or read into the comics or anything.
But he sort of completely 180s into being Darth Vader.
Yeah, the only real kind of stepping stone you have is the death of Shmi Skywalker. Yeah. And his reaction from that. You don't really get to see anything past that builds him up towards the point of being Vader, which I suppose the Clone Wars really kind of aids. Yeah. And you'll probably see more and more throughout the series.
Yeah, like, obviously, because he still has to be Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Knight, at the start of Episode 3. So I don't expect to see too much of it. But if there's just like one, maybe two instances of it a season as I'm not going along, then that's okay by me.
Yeah, and it always builds. And is there anything that you hope that they explain that we, as Star Wars fanatics or people who are just simply interested in the series, have been left with like a, huh? Because there are questions with all these new films, not even just with the prequels and original trilogy, they do create questions that we're like kind of like we want explained at some point. So was there anything that stood out for you that you hope this series overall kind of explains?
Nothing jumping right out at me.
No.
Like, unfortunately, I have found some spoilers, so I know why Ahsoka isn't in episode 3.
Okay, fair.
But I can't think of anything that's like, well, why didn't we see so and so? Like,
or why did this happen?
whatever,
Why are they talking about this? We need to see it. Something.
What about a droid attack on the Wookiees?
Apparently, it was brutal. But there was one thing that they explained, and I don't know. Have you come across the Dooku arc yet, where they're captured by pirates?
Oh yeah, that was season 1.
Yeah, with the Gundarks.
Yes,
Because now finally we
we
have
know
a face.
what our next
We know what
Gundarks
Gundark
is.
Yeah, we know what the Gundarks look like. Which I always thought was quite nice because it
Yeah.
was something that I was constantly like, well, is it this? Is it that? Because there was an old, I think I've got it there and I'll show you to after we've finished the podcast. The first volume of the 2D Clone Wars, but in kind of graphic novel version. And there is an episode where they go to kind of a nest of creatures that live in the dark, and I always consider them to be the Gundarks. But I think they are labelled as something else in the original canon. But anyway, so we may go back to it at the end of the podcast, but we're going to deviate just very, very slightly. And there's something that I encountered, and I think I told you that I was going to bring this up. And it was rather bizarre to me, and I know we have to be kind of careful when we talk about this kind of thing. But I encountered someone, it was a lovely person, she was into Star Wars. I think she come into it in the new generation of people, BB-8 plushies, that kind of thing.
Right.
And she said, I think she said a friend, but it was probably her partner, said that he wouldn't actually let her watch the prequels. It wasn't that he said, don't watch the prequels, or maybe you shouldn't watch the prequels. It was outright stated that he wouldn't let her watch the prequels.
That seems very strange and controlling.
It does a bit. So my advice to anyone who's maybe not only at the kind of, and this doesn't just apply to Star Wars, this applies to any kind of other media or just life itself. Experience it for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm guessing this person was just like really adamant about his feelings towards it, and also he was almost afraid that this person would also not reciprocate his feelings towards the prequels.
I mean, because I'm guessing it's obviously I didn't see the interaction. I don't know the guy, but I'm assuming it comes from a place of prequels are so bad, don't watch them.
Yeah.
I won't let you watch them because they're so bad, or some sort of rubbish like that.
But she'd also specified that she had to go out and watch clips because there are things that are referenced in the new films and things like that she just wouldn't understand, having not had that knowledge.
Yeah, in episode 8, Luke explicitly
mentions all of that stuff and the lead up
Jedi.
to it, and it's like, well, you kind of need to see that to be able to understand just how crippling that was to the Jedi, and how quickly and easily Sidious was able to gain control.
Yeah.
So I guess our advice from here at State of the Galaxy is watch what you want and form your own opinions.
And that the prequels aren't as bad as people say.
No, fair enough. I think we can both preach to that. But I know there are people who adamantly hate them, so we're not going to say
fair
you're
enough,
wrong.
But
at the same time, it's just so important to form your own opinions because that's what makes the Star Wars fan base such an interesting place, especially now with what Episode 8 has caused.
Yeah.
So you've got to form your own opinions because then we all have elements that we like, we all have elements that we dislike about Star Wars. I know that I full out hate the idea of Luke Skywalker and that kind of stuff. I don't know if you know anything about that. So in original canon, there was like a Sith god, as I understand it, called Jurur Sabaoth, and he took the severed hand of Luke Skywalker from Bespin and made a clone from it, but he didn't call it anything like nice or let's call it. We have these Star Wars names that we can cover. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to add an extra U into Luke Skywalker and just call him Luke Skywalker.
Luke.
Yeah. and I didn't like that. But I
No.
loved what came from that, and I loved the kind of dynamic of Dark Luke fighting Light Luke, because it's something that we've had in even now in new Star Wars canon. There's something that you'll discover later down the line. There's something very similar to that. That we get to see. So it's nice to kind of see that again, but with a character that, as far as I'm concerned, most Star Wars fans really, really like. Lots of people like Luke. So it was an interesting thing to see. I just didn't like the whole Luke Skywalker thing, but lots of people do, and it's an opinion based, as so many other forms of media, be it art, podcast,
art is
radio.
subjective.
Exactly. I could love a podcast series. Other people could hate it. Or just not be interested in forms of TV media and stuff like that. It's all subjective. So go out, experiment with it, find what you like, and we all love Star Wars if you're part of the fandom. It's not like if you go out and like the prequels, you're considered like an outcast. You still like Star Wars in its grandness.
Like as a whole.
Yeah, but you just like a different element of it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it more interesting. I think it's more interesting to be in touch with someone who likes different elements. Like, I know other Robert and I like go at each other's necks about Star Wars Episode 2, but it's really kind of interesting to see what his views are on it and what my views are on it, and see how we can kind of, like, once we did manage to reach almost a middle ground. We were so close, but yeah, no, it's good to see this kind of variety, because if we all like the same kind of thing, then it would be
very
real boring.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that kind of variety. So there's a little section that I want to start doing. I don't know if we're going to make it a weekly thing, because it really relies on us having open ears at all times. But we're going to call this little segment Citation Needed. And what we're going to do is, and I don't know if not what we're going to do, is what we have been doing, or at least what I've been doing, is listening out just around and about for people going around talking about Star Wars and people saying these different facts, because I'm not going to say that people are right or wrong, but Star Wars as a spoken story or spoken fact can get a bit disjointed. It is as it is with anything else. So you sometimes encounter facts that may not be entirely right or are exactly right. So the one that I encountered whilst at work was that the walkers, the heavy walkers, the guerrilla walkers that they used on Crate, had blades attached to the legs, so if the Rebellion ever tried the same thing as they did on Hoth, it wouldn't work. Upon further research, it appears that they never actually, because for whatever reason, all of the Episode 8 stuff, all the ships, all of the just basic stuff that you think would have quite a lot on it after the film's been out for such a long time, like the visual guides are out, it has like 2 paragraphs.
Huh.
So it took a very short amount of time to read through the entire thing. And it would appear that they do have a defence for that kind of thing, but it's not mentioning any kind of blades. Right. It's just because the legs at the front are heavily reinforced. And
they have that big...
almost like curved fists, like gorillas.
Yeah.
And they also have the back that would drop down in place as well. So if that were to happen, they could just simply power down and not go over.
Yeah, not just...
Yeah, so they do have a defence for that, but it's not blades.
No.
At least not as the official Wikipedia would depict.
I mean, I can see how someone would get that impression, because it does, the armour on the front legs is serrated.
Yeah, because they've got almost like vents on them, haven't they?
Yeah, but it could just be, like you said, vents or armour to defend against ground attacks rather than cable attacks. And like they seem like they're going to be too big to cut wire, if you know what I mean, because judging by the scale, scale of ships in Star Wars is a bit like wild anyway.
Yeah.
But you do see in Episode 8 they do have some of the old style AT-ATs.
They do, yeah.
Next to it, and that's like, that only sort of comes up to the quote unquote shoulder.
I wonder if they did that just to give us a sense of how tall these things are.
I mean, maybe, yeah. But it does work in universe as well, because the First Order's recreating the Empire. So.
Yeah. So, but it also makes because the AT-ATs, to all intents and purposes, did actually prove a useful tool on the Assault on Hoth. I know that some of them were taken down, be it by tow cable or by Luke just grappling up and throwing a bomb
chucking
inside.
a grenade in there.
But at the same time, they did win that particular assault.
Yeah.
So
So
overwhelming numbers in walkers that are incredibly difficult to take down. That armor's too strong for blasters.
yeah.
They did work. So why not reuse that and improve upon it? And clearly they did.
And I've read that. I don't know if this is like someone after the fact justifying it.
Yeah.
Which it probably is, because I'm guessing that back in 1979, whenever the Battle of Hoth films?
Yeah.
Battle of Hoth
Battle of
scenes
Hoth films? What? I want to go and see these.
It was probably just, well, these will look cool.
Yeah.
And like it's been sort of back justified that though in a universe where speeders and Imperial dropships and all that sort of thing functions and is commonplace, why would you have something walking?
Yeah.
It has an intimidation factor that just a speeder doesn't. So them having an AT-AT next to one of the, I think the official designation is like AT-M6.
Yeah, because they're all-terrain walkers apparently. So I don't.
So it's
I
like
can't remember
all-terrain,
the
and I
M6
think the
comes in.
M6 is just a gun that's on the back.
Yeah, I think it might be actually. I think that is right.
But yeah, the intimidation of, well, you thought these things were big. We got an even bigger one now.
God knows what we'll face in episode 9.
Yeah, so it's
Planet-crushing walker.
it stands up straight, but like the head's out of atmosphere.
Yeah, just stride across planets. But yeah, so citation needed is something that I'm still going to look into. I'll hopefully pick up the official guide for Star Wars Episode 8 at some point and the concept art book. So I'll have a flick through and see if they mention anything about serrated blades. Because clearly there's a lot more that they need to add to that particular entry.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they were such a focus of the last couple of scenes.
Yeah, the scenes and the marketing as well.
And the marketing as well, that you can't really have two paragraphs to explain everything. Because later on with New Canon even, they had like stories on development and like history of use and that kind of thing, which we clearly haven't had added yet.
As far as I can remember, in the art book, there's not anything about it. But
really? What? Nothing?
I think there's like, not Blade specifically. I mean,
there
is.
Okay.
I'm pretty
I was
sure
going to say, how did they come up with that? At the last minute, gorillas,
this but bigger.
Mush. Boom.
No, I think it has a couple of pages on it, but not anything about specific anti-tow cable blades.
So did you pick up the concept art book then? For
Yeah.
Stars? Oh, okay, so you've got, because I did have a flick through, so you've seen that horrible scene that depicts a worse milking of the space cow with like Luke and Rey going with buckets each, and the multicoloured porgs and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that because I mean, I don't. Have you got the episode 7 one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you've had a flick through that, and I don't know if you detected the same thing as I did, but with episode 7 one, it's so much nicer to look through because for the most part they didn't know where they were going with it.
I felt the same way.
So it was like, oh, look at all these ideas. I mean, it was also quite depressing because it was like, look at all these cool things that could have happened. But at the same time, it was like, oh, it was almost like we were starting off from episode 1 again, where it's been such a long time. They didn't know what they were going to create. It was just imagination.
Yeah, seeing what works.
But now they know what they're going to have.
It was a lot more.
And it was just like, oh, here's variations of Ben Solo. Here's him bald.
Yeah.
Why? Because we're running out of things to draw. So, but no, that was my thoughts with the difference between 7 and 8. But obviously that's just kind of the territory once you know what you're going to have.
Yeah, like it's
that experimental phase.
Obviously episode 7 had a jumping off point, but that was episode 6 30 years ago. Yeah. So it's like there's a lot more opportunity to change things up in a massively drastic way. Whereas episode 8 starting so close to the end of episode 7 and obviously overlapping in some cases. Yeah. They were a lot more tied into this is where we're starting from, so where do we go from here? Yeah. So it's a bit more restricted.
No, fair play. But one of those things that I wanted to quickly cover wasn't planned, but we may as well. is in that episode 7 concept art book, I don't know if you remember, but there's a scene that's depicted where Rey goes to a sunken part of the Death Star.
Yeah.
And it's the Emperor's throne room. Just imagine the kind of visions that we could have got.
Yeah, that
the
would
dark
be,
side,
like, wild.
The dark side mark that was left there just by the Emperor sitting in that room must have been absolutely insane. And I think that would have been a lot, personally, I think that would have been a lot better than her touching the Skywalker saber.
Yeah, I mean...
Because it almost suggested that the Skywalker saber was its own kind of hologram.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously had a long history of...
It did, yeah. But I suppose that's why it was so disjointed, the kind of visions that she was getting, because so many people had used it.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Like, obviously, the main possessors of it were Anakin and Luke.
Yeah.
But it was in Obi-Wan's possession for, like, 20 years as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
even if he wasn't
and even
practicing
Han
with it.
picked it up for a moment to slice open the top.
Yeah.
Probably, like, whoever... I don't know whether Anakin built his lightsaber after Episode 2.
I'm guessing he did. Because the one from Episode 3 through to... Well... Episode 8 now. Spoiler alert, sorry.
That's fine, don't worry.
That the saber's destroyed, but
yeah,
if you're listening to a Star Wars podcast, you should have seen the most recent film, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's the same saber.
Yeah.
Because it's the same design, same... Obviously, it's not the same prop. They had to rebuild it for prequels and sequels.
And I think because they did that, they've now had the problem of justifying why the activation button looks different.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's different, as far as I'm aware.
I mean, depending on when that happened, Anakin was shown as being very mechanically minded, and I know that some stories have depicted him as messing around with his prosthetic arm just to tweak it. So he might have tweaked his lightsaber.
And I dare say, I think the jump actually within lightsaber design was between episodes 3 and 4, but Obi-Wan also had a lot of downtime on Tatooine.
Got to do something for 20 years.
I dare say he picked up the Skywalker saber, replaced parts that have been a bit weird.
Yeah.
And that's probably why. There is actually a video on it, but I need to get around to watching that. But I'm going to pre-theorise that that's what that was. That was just Obi-Wan fixing stuff.
If that's true, that could account for why touching Anakin's lightsaber, Rey hears Obi-Wan's voice.
Exactly.
He was putting his own touch on it, sort of thing.
There we go. And there's talking about lightsabers. My father wanted you to... Well, your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough, but your uncle wouldn't allow it. Thought you'd follow old Obi-Wan on some damn fool idealistic crusade like your father did. So, like the podcast with Eleanor and Harrison, I am now handing over my very own disciple saber to your good self. Unfortunately, it has no power in it at the moment, so which is quite fortunate for you because it's got a 12-watt bulb, so it would blind you.
Oh, well.
But it is a very basic saber, custom built, which took 6 months in order from order to arriving at my door. So I was just thinking, as a Star Wars fan yourself, how would that be in terms of combat? I know I've just given it to you, so I'm ready to fight. But it's built for a semi two-handed grip, but mainly one-handed grip.
It does feel more one-handed.
Yeah, because you've got the material, which is clearly just for a one-handed grip.
Yeah.
But I went for it purposely because of the kind of archaic design of the emitter.
Yeah. And it's a very sort of Anakin emitter.
And also, as you're probably not surprised, it sports a red blade. But it does actually, it came with a combat ready, because they are dual ready blades.
Oh, right.
It came with a combat ready blade, which I also, because you get 2 variant choices, you get a regular domed one and then you get a pointed one. Actually, I went for the pointed one. And I also went for the 12-watt bulb as opposed to the 8, because I need to be seen. I need to be seen in both light and dark.
Well, you can do the end scene of Rogue One.
Exactly. But it's a lovely thing to have, and it's not my only saber. I do have many. Like, I've got Darth Maul's, I've got various variants of Anakin's and Obi-Wan's. I've also got Yoda's, but I've got a custom built one as well for my own Sith Lord, which my dad and I built.
It's very nice.
It is very nice.
Like I say, it's sort of more one-handed use than two-handed.
It is, but I was surprised when
plenty of room to get both hands.
Oh,
on
yeah.
there. It just doesn't feel as natural.
No. And I was surprised when I first picked it up of just how light it is.
Yeah, it is very light.
I mean, obviously with the
lightsaber,
you'll never get the feel that the Jedi supposedly did
no.
if you have the blade in, because it is weighted to a certain extent. But even with that in, it's not terribly weighted.
No, I mean, for being made of some sort of metal, looks like maybe solid aluminium.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a metallurgist. But yeah, it does feel nice and light, but there is enough sort of heft behind it that you can swing it around, as I'm doing. Unfortunately, this is an audio-only podcast, so you can't see me playing around with it. But
I'm guessing you know what that attachment is on the base, because funny enough, my friend Harrison didn't, but Eleanor did, and someone who's very new to the series. So not that one, yeah.
Yeah, that's where you clip it onto your belt.
But yeah, that's also because when you build a saber, it might be worth just because I'd love to see which one you would choose personally. Maybe we'll do that at a later point. But you get to, like, the hilt itself. Most of them are about £70, and then you're adding in electrics. Unfortunately, that one has no sound because it was my first saber, so I wanted just basics.
Yeah.
But it like the electrics cost extra, then the soundboard, then additional wattage of the emitter, and also that hilt attachment as well. So yeah, it all racks up, but it's so worth it. It's just a nice thing to have.
It is.
And I have taken that to Comic-Con because it's a damn nice saber. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll have you back on the podcast, and maybe at that point you will have designed your own to a certain extent, or at least had a look for, because that's part of the basic saber line. And then you have things like the open crystal sabers and double sabers. Open crystal sabers are so cool. And then you've got obviously the saber staffs and the lightsaber shotos, lightsaber whip. They've even done a lightsaber hammer. I don't know how that works. I'll show it to you. It's intense.
Sounds
yeah. But yeah, so we'll wrap up this episode of the podcast if that's all right with you.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
So whether you are Jedi or Sith, Resistance or First Order, Rebellion or Empire, Republic or CIS, we hope you have a very good day, evening, whatever you're doing. May the Force be with you. See you guys next week.